Right. Hello, hello. I got nothing like no. Let me stop recording this. All right. There we go. So Pam joins us to talk about what makes a trans woman trans. I think this will be a very interesting interview for you folks out there because it's new to me and it's new to many of us too. And there's always you can always learn something by just asking questions. And I find Pam, you came on the YouTube channel about a year ago or so. When did you first come on to the? Because I remember just one day out of nowhere, you said, "Hey, is your favorite trans person or lady Pam?" And I was like, "What the hell is Pam? Who is it?" You remember that? And what that was about a
Yeah.
year ago. Okay, gotcha. What made you come out on my channel? Not come out, but come and say, "Hey, look at me." I'm not saying like that, but you know what I'm talking about. To identify yourself on my channel. What made you decide to do that? That's pretty interesting.
First of all, you're hilarious. I gotta just tell you, you're the funniest guy. I love you, dude. You're just so funny and so informative. And I just want to tell you publicly that I appreciate the things that you have to say on your YouTube channel for people who are retired like myself.
Well, thank
It
you.
really has educated me in such a way that I'm very grateful. So thank you.
Yeah,
Um, I would so I think when I first came and said, "Hey, it's your favorite trans girl, Pam,"
yeah,
I
right,
think
right.
you were probably speaking on some trans subject about
Yeah.
transgender people at that time. So I said, "Oh, well, I guess there's an opening for me to talk about transgender people." But so I just kind of just introduced myself that way.
Do you do that normally, Pam? Like you said, hey, there's an opening to educate people about trans stuff, or what?
I don't normally run around being a trans
You're not a
educator.
vegan. Look at me, I'm a vegan. Right on. I got you.
I don't normally do that. Um, However, if somebody asks me, about being transgender, I'm happy to talk to them about that.
Yeah, right on. Well, and you've been a active member on the live stream for going on a year now. We've had a nice group of consistent people on the live stream, and everyone's I just it's fun. It's fun to do these live streams where you get a different input from different people. And when you came on board, so it's pretty cool. So, folks, what happened was I said to Pam, I said it'd be cool to interview you to get a more of awareness about what her background has been, how she recognized that she was trans, and just whatever she wants to share. Because I find in this world of ours that we can smiling and being nice to people make the world a whole lot more peaceful place, as opposed to having all the answers and everyone else is wrong. And I'm as much guilty of that as anybody. I mean, my goodness, you told me about trans 5 years ago. I said, what the hell is that? You know what I'm saying? Pam, it was something that's very interesting to me. I almost forgot to share this with you. There's an old hardcore band out of New York City called Life of Agony, and they got a little bit more big time as the days went on. But back in the late '80s, early '90s, they were just a good old fashioned hardcore punk band that was actually quite good. Their singer is probably like 5'4", a guy named Keith Caputo. And he was one of the first guys to actually use like singing. He didn't just scream or yell. He actually sang, and it was pretty good. And they were pretty, very, very hard. Actually, a hard band. And I remember I met someone who knew Keith, and this is a girl, and she said Keith always had the most beautiful women all the time, but he was never happy. And I remember, I think this is, I probably talked to this girl probably like 1996 or 97. I said, so he's always got the hot chicks, but he's never happy. And long story short, Keith is now known as, I want to say, and I don't know this guy or her now, but it's now known as Minnie or something like that. And I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, you gotta be kidding. This is probably 2017. I said, you gotta be kidding me. That guy, you know what I'm saying? Because he was a singer of a very good hardcore band, not an aka, whatever, some, play band on Broadway or anything like that, whatever those things are called, but like a good hardcore band. I couldn't believe it. I said, what? And I said, this is crazy. That was 2017. I was like, how do we handle this? How we, the fans and stuff like that. And I was like, what's going on here? And then long story short, so I started watching, they did a show probably like 2019 or 20, still hard as hell, man. Still freaking putting out the hits and still everyone's dancing and having a good time. I said to myself, why does this bother me? I remember thinking that. I said, why does this bother me? And yet it did, and it still kind of does, and I don't know why. So I just want to open up and think, why do people get so bothered by people who are trans? Any thoughts on that?
Uh, I think that in our society, in Western society, there's a high gender expectation of gender. Um, and you can see this from the beginning of when you're born. You are described as a male or female according to your biology and your genitalia, and immediately you're put into gender roles. Immediately, those babies are either blue or pink, or they're given toys that we equate with male or female. So there are gender expectations in our society that are very, very rigid. And we expect biological males and biological females to fulfill those very gender or rigid gender specific roles. And I think that when you think about that, when you know somebody as a biological, in this case, a biological male who's in a hardcore punk band, and they come out as transgender or whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
then that expectation and what you think you knew about that person is dashed. So and you're confused and you don't understand why.
Yeah, right. I don't.
You've invested a bit in relating to that person, perhaps as a male yourself to another male.
Mm-hmm.
And now that that apple cart is upset, if you will. So I think it's the roles of the specific rigid gender expectations that we all have. And even when, as a trans woman coming out, because I kept this secret my whole life until later on in life, nobody knew at all. And it was very upsetting because they know you as a certain way.
Yeah, yeah, right.
They all sometimes they say that the people around you also have to transition in a way when the person is transitioning because they don't know this new person, you know.
But are you really new? I mean, that's the thing. Are you a new person? I mean, I know you're new as identification, but you're still Pam? You still like the Red Sox or whatever it is? You know what I'm saying, right? Or what?
I'm not a baseball fan, but I get you.
You know what I'm
As a
saying?
Patriots, you know, when Tom Brady was around. But yeah, I think I am still, you know, who I am, who I've always been. But to be quite honest with you, I am different now, you know, and you can't help but be different. I mean, when you begin hormone replacement therapy, like I did 6 years ago, it changes the way that you see things. It changes the way that you think. It changes your emotions. It changes your body, and it changes everything about you.
Ah,
But
interesting.
what it's done for me, Josh, is it's given me the freedom to be able to be who I am. And who I am specifically, it's opened up myself more to the kind of person who I am. And the kind of person who I am is a thoughtful, caring, kind, considerate, and intelligent person.
But you didn't think you were that before? That's like,
I did, but this allows me to be even more of that because I'm now authentic.
you don't have to cover it up.
Yeah. And I'm
That's a,
happy.
that's a good point about you see some like your buddy, we're in this. I get that. I don't agree so much about the rigid gender rules. My parents are hippies. My mom, I had dolls growing up. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not sure I buy that. I just I don't know. I don't know. I actually think that your point for me is more valid to think you're about a person that you knew as you could relate to more just
Yes.
from, what I'm saying? And then that gets, but I guess my question is who cares? Why do I care? And that, as I get older and I have my own children going through whatever they're going through, I find out that why do I matter? Why do I care what Pam thinks about herself? It doesn't matter to me at all, but yet somehow I still do. And I'm just saying this in general. When I say I'm talking about I hate to say society is so cliched, but you know what I'm saying. People generally speak like, well, you were disowned essentially by your own people because of your lifestyle that you chose to pursue, not your lifestyle choices, but your lifestyle you chose to pursue. So why? Just, I don't know. You don't have to go that deep in that if you don't want. It's one of those things like there's a guy I follow too on YouTube, the punk rock MBA, Finn McKenty, and he's great. And he's like, why do you care? And he didn't say it to me, but he's just saying, why do you care? I said, I don't really have a good answer for why I care. You know what I'm saying? And for some reason, is that's I don't have a good answer for that. I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm yapping here, but
No, I mean, I guess only you can answer that,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
because I can't peer into the mind of Josh, which I'm kind of afraid to do that anyway, but
But you find that.
it's uh,
Well, go
I,
ahead. Go ahead.
I will say this, why do you care? Maybe you care because you don't understand
Yes, that's exactly it. Right.
what makes a transgender person a transgender.
That's exactly it. That's why I wanted to have this interview so we can understand. You see what I'm saying? Because I think it's important for people to understand where other people are coming from before we pass judgment. And as a person who believes in the Christian Lord, I don't think I can judge people because I know it only goes one way, and that's the only guy I can do is upstairs. It ain't me. So Pam, if you don't mind, share with you, and Pam and I have already spoken for about 45 minutes or so before this, so I have a pretty good gauge of her background, but I'm not going to go into it unless you want to share, Pam. But tell us a little bit about how you woke up one day, or you just woke, you're born, and you're like, hey, I don't think I'm in the right body. I mean, however you want to do it, just I'd love to hear how you found this out. I mean, where'd it come from?
Okay. So I think that this is generally the way that most transgender people think, because I know a lot of transgender people.
Yeah,
I don't really hang out with them, but I know a lot of them. And when I talk, yeah, I know when we talk about these things, when I relate my story, they are all very, very in tune and empathetic with what I have to say and have experienced the same thing themselves.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah. So I know I'm on the right track there, and I can only speak for myself,
yeah,
obviously.
understood.
But when I was young, I would say about 5 or 6 years old, I began to notice that I started to identify with females very strongly on television or movies or what have you. I just identified with them very, very strongly. And I didn't think anything about it. Of course, being so young, I didn't think about it. But as I grew older, I think I identified even more strongly with them. But by the time puberty came around, and puberty, of
Mhm.
course, is a very upsetting thing for everybody. It's a trying time for children, and I it was like a ton of bricks. It's sort of like I just felt I should be different. Different, and it wasn't that I didn't like being biologically male. It wasn't that way. A lot of times you hear people say, oh, it must be a woman trapped in a man's body or vice versa. I never felt that like that ever. I was very much understood who I was, but I felt very, very strongly for whatever reason that it just should be different.
Yeah.
And it was hard to deal with, because if I ask you to think how you would feel, how would you feel in my position if you identified very strongly with females and didn't know why when you were young? And then when puberty hit you, you felt very strongly you should be different. How would you
Mhm.
feel? How would
Well,
you feel? Hold on a second. I'm not
no,
asking to
yeah, yeah,
think,
Brandon, keep
think
going.
about it. So, and I'll ask your audience to think about that as well. So, in my own case, like, think about how you would feel when you had these feelings, but you felt very strongly that they were wrong, that you shouldn't have those feelings, that
But
you
I need to
shouldn't think.
interject. Like when you say how you feel, like we
Yeah.
played football with the boys. You know what I'm saying? Did you not do that, or did not want to do that, or the boys play basketball, football, we go swimming and stuff like that. Is that so? Is that what you did do, or you felt like you should be with the girls instead? I
No,
mean,
no, no. I had male friends.
yeah,
I was very masculine. I was working out. It was
okay,
bodybuilding. I mean, it's not like I didn't like being male.
yeah,
It's just that I felt very strongly that I should be different. So it wasn't that I didn't enjoy being a guy. I
Yeah.
loved women, I chased girls, I did guy stuff, but in my mind, I was always in the back of my mind, I always felt that it should be different, always. And as time, now think about how you would think in that way. And back then, of course, and I'm 67, so back then it was in the 60s, 70s,
Right.
and you couldn't
Right.
you couldn't say anything about, there was no such word as transgender,
Right.
and people were derided and looked upon as very odd, for doing that, maybe mentally ill, maybe it was against the law. I mean, if you were to present yourself in any other way than your biological self. So it was, the feelings, and think about what it would be like to feel that you needed to hide these feelings, but you didn't know why you had them, but
Yeah.
you
That's
had them,
absolutely.
and you can't stop them. They don't stop. They keep coming, and you try not to feel that way because of shame, guilt, and embarrassment about how you feel. And you don't want to feel that way, but you do, and you can't stop it. And there's nothing you can do. You can try it. You can get time away from it. You can try to wish it away, pray it away, but it always comes back. And when the feelings come back, they come back stronger and stronger and stronger. And I will tell you that most of the trans people that I know have felt the exact same way. And it's been decades because we are older. Now, I don't know the experience with younger people now
Yeah.
because I'm
Yeah.
a young person. I can only speak for myself. But so for decades, I hid these thoughts and feelings, and I hid them, and I dealt with them in ways that were self-destructive
Yeah.
until the point where I decided to not do that. And I still didn't deal with this whole transgender issue until I was really 7 years. Well, it was earlier than that with my wife. I came out to my wife and told her, but um, it's only been about 6 years now that I've been full-time transgender, and I will tell you that since I've done that, I felt very, very good about myself. It's when you're able to be authentic, when you're able to be honest with yourself, and you're able to be honest with others, and you feel an acceptance from others.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about acceptance. We all want to be accepted by other people, in our lives. And um, for a transgender person to come out and face their fears, and there's a huge fear of telling
Yeah.
others and coming out as a trans person, and coming out to family and
Yeah.
friends publicly and all that stuff. It's very, very, very nerve-wracking and fearful and difficult. It's a hard thing to do. But when you do that, there's a calmness that comes over you,
Mm-hmm.
uh, self-assuredness, a great sense of self-esteem and self-worth. And the more that you're accepted by people for who you are, it's marvelous, because finally you can be authentic, you can be real, you can tell people, this is who I have been my whole life, and this is who I am now. Finally, I am congruent with my identity, and my body is congruent. I'm not fighting anymore. I'm not fighting that feeling anymore. I've accepted myself. I begin to love myself for who I am. And when other people accept you and love you for who you are, that's a marvelous thing when you haven't done that your entire life in this area.
So I still got a question though. So
Yeah.
you still like to chase girls, you still like to do football and all that stuff. You play guitar and all that. So
Yeah.
I guess and I don't even, it's like you're still doing dude things. You see what I'm saying? You were married to you showed me the picture of your second wife, and freaking, like I told you, smoking hot woman. So you literally insanely gorgeous. I mean, my goodness, that lady was gorgeous, and
She's very beautiful.
oh
Yeah.
my goodness. So you're still doing this, and yet you still, like, you're doing all the stuff that normal dudes do. You like the pats, the whole thing, and yet that still wasn't enough. You're still like, this isn't, I mean, the actions are me, but it's still not me who I truly see what I'm saying. That's where I don't take this wrong, but I get gay guys. They're like, I never liked chicks. I didn't want to be with a chick. You know what I'm saying? And I had to pretend. I get that. I mean, I don't get it, but I get it. But for you as a trans woman, you still did all the stuff that dudes do, and yet you still weren't there. It's just it's tough to comprehend actually. And again, there's no answer for that. I just like, wow, that must have been even worse because you're sitting there thinking, I don't mind doing all this stuff, hanging out with the boys, but I'm just not that. You know what I'm saying, Pam? It's just that's gotta be the worst. Because again, if you're gay, you're like, I don't want to hang out with the dude. I get it, but if you're, I don't know, I just it's weird. It's just
All
weird to
right.
me. Like, that's
Yeah.
gotta be tough.
Yeah. So I will say this about that. This is something that most people do talk about and focus on. When you're first telling them about like being transgender, talking about being transgender to them, quite often the first thing they will say is, "Oh, I have gay friends." Um, they try to empathize with some kind of have
Yeah,
some correlation with you,
right.
but what you have to try to understand is that being gender is a gender identity. It is identity of a gender, not a sexual preference. So
Mm,
there's a big difference between sexual preference or who you want to be with and a gender preference or gender identity as who you are. A gender identity as transgender or
mm,
non-binary or what have you
all right.
is totally different and separate to their sexual preference, just as transgender people can like males, trans women can like males, females, and vice versa with trans men. It's not about gender. That is about sexual preference. So, because I like women and I loved women, it had nothing to do with my gender preference. It was a sexual preference. That is the difference. They're totally separate.
Mm, it's confusing to me a little bit, but I okay.
Well, I mean, if it's just like, who do you like to be with? If you're gay, if you're a gay male, then you like to be with men. If
Hey,
you're
right.
a lesbian woman, you like to be with women. If you're a
I like to be with women.
bisexual, if you're bisexual, you like to be with both, right? It has nothing to do really with your gender. It's your preference
Understood. I
for
get that.
sexual.
Yeah. Just it's hard
Yeah.
to
So it's hard to
separate.
understand maybe for you, but that's basically what it's about.
No,
So just because I happen to like women,
yeah.
um, and I loved women my whole life, that had nothing to do with my feeling of who I am as my gender.
I see. Okay, right on. So, right. So, just because you prefer women
Mhm.
in terms of your sexual preference has nothing to do with your gender identification. I
That's
see.
right.
That's the difference there. You say, look, I'm still a woman who likes women more on the sexual preference side. If that makes sense. Okay, gotcha. I
Mhm.
get that kind of now.
Mhm.
That's where the okay, I understood that to some degree. But I'm still like, all right. So you knew this, you're hiding it because the ostracism, probably I mean, even hell, you're 67 years old, the beat downs you'd ever come out with it. You say, hey, did any, did anyone like, how would you even like growing up? Did anyone like know, say, Pam, you're just different. I mean, you still like girls and stuff. And we're still playing football, but you're just different. I mean, did ever come anything like that? I mean, like
I never played football. I was never big at
you know what I'm talking
sports.
about, but just
I know male stuff, right?
male
So,
stuff. Right?
so
Yeah.
the thing about that is that I very much had what I call like stereotypical feminine characteristics. I was not effeminate in any
All
way.
right.
I was masculine. I was a
Right.
male. I worked out. I was buff,
Right. Right.
all
Right.
that stuff.
Right.
But I had stereotypical feminine characteristics, which is kind of more nurturing, kind of more um, um, emotional, certain characteristics that we equate with feminine characteristics rather than male characteristics. Although I was a stereotypical male for all intents and purposes, you know. So I think that that was part of my gender identity that is in my brain, you know. And
Ah, that's
interesting.
interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
haven't.
yeah. So, and that's why my wife said when I came out, she said, "You've always been like a woman." I was never
Ah,
effeminate in front of her,
right.
but you know, she saw those feminine characteristics within my nature of being a transgender woman, you know, of my gender preference,
I
identity.
never thought about that. That's an interesting way to look at it too. The more nurturing, the more maternal, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, yes,
Ah, that is interesting there. I never thought about it like that. That's
yes, yes, yes.
say again.
You got it.
Yeah. And so no, I get that 100%. And you, I don't know how much you want to get into it, but I'm going to skip over parts of your life you share with me, but you don't attribute your being a trans to hurting yourself with various, you know, getting involved in bad activities or something like that along your lines. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how much you want this, but you
Oh, I
know,
mean, substance abuse.
yes, yeah, right, exactly.
Substance abuse. I think that was no. I don't think that had to do so much with my gender identity as it did with some of the issues that I had growing up as a kid. I was very quiet, reserved, shy in elementary school. I was just a quiet kid, you know, and other kids equated that, you know, in some kind of way where they would bully me quite a bit,
Yeah,
you know, and so I was always being bullied. So I withdrew into myself. So I think other issues, you know, there's a lot of alcoholism in my family, as there is in many families too. You know, maybe there was a genetic component. I was a musician very early on in my life, and went right into as a natural progression into that lifestyle, kind of
yeah,
bohemian, you know,
yeah.
hedonistic lifestyle, if you will, you know. So I think it was more that than than any kind of gender preference, to be honest with you.
But even back then, you still knew going into that bohemian hedonistic lifestyle. You're like, I'm still not in the what I am. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Even back then, you knew it. So you
Yeah,
don't attribute to like, oh my goodness, my priest molested me or something like that, or like, you know what I'm saying? It's just like this is just the way it's always been for you,
it's
essentially.
always been that way.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Nothing new, you know. But
So yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
but of course, you know, the thing that hurts you the most as a transgender person back in that day, especially, is the fear, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
the fear of being known, because if you had to hide it, because you know, you felt as if somebody knew, then your whole life would fall apart. You know, you would lose your friends, you would lose your family, you would lose everything, you wouldn't be able to work. And even now, it's not easy for transgender people. I hear, you know, I'm an older person, I'm settled and everything, but I'm sure, you know, I've heard, you know, about younger people being discriminated against, and there's still a lot of it's better, but I know there's still a lot of prejudice and a lot of discrimination against
You want to
transgender
share
people.
anything
Just
that happened to you at all? I mean, you don't have to, but anything that you want to share about your own being, you know,
uh, I haven't really had any like, you know, living in like the most liberal state in the Union,
right.
Massachusetts. It's pretty easy, you know, but and because I'm an older person and I'm retired, and I actually came out as transgender to my work when I was ready to retire, although they wanted me to still work. I said,
Yeah.
no, I'm going to retire. But so being a settled person, it's, you know, I don't have those issues, you know. So there's nothing that I can say that I've had issues with, except for once I had an issue with, I went into a bar to see a friend's band, because I am a musician. I have friends who are musicians, you know. I don't drink, but I go to see a band, and I was taking a selfie, you know,
Yeah.
because I'm gorgeous. Don't mind me, I have a crazy sense of humor. um almost as crazy as yours. I mean, yours is off the charts funny, you know, but that's why I love this guy. He's
It's
just
a it's a funny world, Pam. If we can't
he's
laugh at
so
it,
funny. He's so funny. So anyway, you know, here I am taking a selfie, thinking I'm all that and all that.
right.
Just joking, you know, really. But so, trying to get the right light, you know,
Right,
whatever.
right.
So between sets, my friend, he smoked. So I went out there and to speak with him, and we're talking outside, and this guy came up to me. This guy was like, I'm 66 years old,
Right.
sick little 66-year-old 5'8" trans woman, and this dude, he's like got to be 6'2" or 6'3", in his 30s, ripped, he's
Yeah.
buff, and he comes up to me and he starts giving me some problems, and he starts saying, you took my. Now I'm not gonna say what he said,
Yeah.
because but he was really nasty, and he threatened me, and he assaulted me.
Oof.
He said that I was taking this picture, and I said, oh, no, 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 I was just taking selfies. And he threatened to take my phone and smash it, and smash my face in, and started calling me it, and started calling me things like freak and
Right.
it and all that. And so here I am faced with this bully in front of
Right.
me,
Yeah.
and I have, you know, I have no way. I don't know what to do, but then some security guys came, and he was, threatening them and all that stuff. So that's the only time I've actually ever been assaulted as a trans person. Um, it was unnerving,
Right.
and um, like, see, for Josh, he could take care of himself. I can't be an ex-military and all this. I don't. I'm like,
I'm a lover, not a fighter, Pam. The last thing I want to do is going to fight. That's all. How about just, you've been sober for 30 years now, you said
yeah,
too. So how about, say again?
yes.
Yeah, sober for 30 years. So just like, I mean, all that substance abuse, coming out, telling your wife that you're coming out. I mean, that's a pretty tough road to hoe there. You know what I'm saying? And yet here we are. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's actually quite amazing when you think about it. The ups and downs of your life and all the stuff you had to contend with, and it's more liberal now in some regards, like ranches. So you can be in Boston, or the most liberal city, or this union or whatever. But it's still just it's very interesting that of all the stuff you specifically had to forget, not just the trans stuff, but just with your wife, when you told her and she was very accommodating for you and all that too. That's pretty cool. I mean, that was pretty cool that she was able to recognize you and say, hey, you've always kind of been like that, and not even think twice about it. That's pretty cool.
I was lucky, I was
Yeah.
lucky in that way. Not a lot of trans women are lucky in that way when they come out to their spouses, like that. If they've kept that secret from them and they come out to them, very often they wind up in divorce.
Well,
So um,
yeah. I'll go ahead.
I think it's more of kind of like, well, you weren't honest with me,
Ah.
that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And also, I think they see women who are with their biological males. They think if they hadn't told them that they were transgender, like I hadn't till that point, I think a great majority of women, some do stay with their spouses, but a lot of them, they are just not, they're heterosexual, they're just not attracted to that,
Yeah.
so, which kind of makes sense, right? But um it's not an easy thing to do. But my wife and I, we had unconditional love, so it was something that I thought I should be honest with her, and I'm glad I did, because it worked out very, very well.
Of the other trans people that you've come in contact with, are they similar stories to you that they're substance abuse, or what, or they just, I don't say normal, but if you're not substance abuse, you're more normal, if you know what I'm saying. And this is coming from an alcoholic, so I mean, whatever. But are they like Wall Street bankers, and just one day they say, I just got to tell the world, or are they all in the gutter, and going to narc anonymous, or is it just a wide range of people that have said, this is where I've always been like this, and I just can't do this anymore. I got to be who I am.
I think there are a wide variety of people who are transgender in all kinds of different situations, whether that is having a spouse that has known all their marriage, if they're older, that kind of put up with it, if you will,
Yeah,
or
right.
I think there's a lot of substance abuse within the transgender community. I think there is. I certainly, there's a lot of suicidal ideation.
Yes, right.
I think there was. I think I've never been that way. But I think that over 40 to or 50% of transgender people have either tried to commit suicide or have suicidal ideations.
Well, why though? I mean, I see that's what I don't. I mean, if they're coming out and saying this is my authentic self, why then would the suicide be the? I don't understand that, Pam. And it's not up to me to understand. It's like, but this is what your authentic self is, and you would like you said you felt relief, you felt like fired up essentially. How come these people? Because that's 100% true that suicide among the trans community is just off the charts. Why?
I think the suicidal ideation for trans people occurs before they come out,
Oh, interesting.
to deal with the fear and the self-loathing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You think so? Okay, that's it. But
I think so.
I mean, I get that because I can't imagine what's like to tell everybody that all your friends and all the people you know, your family, you know what I'm saying? Like, you share with me some stuff like, hey, by the way, guys, I can't imagine. I mean,
Well, they don't know you like you know yourself, right? So they don't understand. So they see you as a certain person, a certain gender, and a certain role. But then suddenly you spring this on them and you say, look, this is how I've felt my whole
yeah.
life, and I'm going to change, and I hope you come with me. But it's hard for them. It's hard for people who really get to know you a lot,
Well, just
especially
like I was saying
family.
about the lady in that band. Is there a way to do it delicately? I don't even know how you do it. How do you do like, hey, I'm gonna drop some breadcrumbs so you can? I mean, I don't even know how you would do that. Just
Yeah, I don't know. How do you do it?
I don't know. And I'm just anything like that. It's like for anything, like I mean, just
Yeah.
I don't know what you would do though, but I guess you just have to hope that people have an open heart to see what you're going through, and I say you in the plural, Pam, not Pam specifically here. I just it's a unique thing, and I just my heart hurts for people who feel so where they got to kill themselves. I hate that. Suicide is not the option. It's anytime someone's killing themselves or thinking about it, it just makes your heart bleed, regardless of what brought them to that point. It's just that's in the trans community, it's just a fact. The suicide rates are off the chart. It's no joke. It's a freaking tragedy, and
No,
these are
it's
real
really
human
serious.
beings. These are real
It's really
human beings. Say
it's really
again.
serious. It's
It
really
is.
serious. It's a very serious issue, and I think that I think that people feel that way again because they find it very difficult to deal with who they are. Their fear of letting other people know who they are, their fear of losing loved ones, family, work, and they're just the fear that they have themselves about not being accepted by the people that they love, or not being accepted by the friends that they've known, and or by their work, or by society in general, that
Yeah, absolutely.
because
100%.
everyone wants to just be accepted for who they are, don't they?
Well, especially when you lived like your life, you lived so many years, you know what I'm saying? The routine, and all of a sudden it's like different. I mean, that's anytime you're doing something different, it's nerve wracking. But here
Yeah.
we're doing something different where we're asking to be accepted by,
And
I
people don't understand, Josh. I mean, they don't understand transgender people like you didn't understand.
don't
It's like
know.
they don't understand what motivates somebody like us. They often have uh, misconceptions about what trans people are like, and I think often they equate it with like LGBTQ, or being gay or lesbian. I think that quite often they conflate sexuality
Yeah,
with
yeah,
gender identity, and they're complete separate
yeah,
entities. They have nothing to do with each other. And so I think the more the transgender people like myself come out and speak honestly about who they are and why they are that way, my hope is that people will open their hearts and minds to understand that we're just people
yeah,
who happen to have a different identity. And it's not about sexuality, it's about who you feel you are. And to be happy and to love yourself for that, and to be accepted by others for that, regardless of the political
right.
and
I got you.
religious problems
Yeah.
that come with being transgender, and the ideologies that people have. My hope is that, and it is changing, and it's like any struggle, it takes a while for people to get used to the idea. And being transgender is nothing new. I mean, transgender people have been around for forever, forever. So I think the perceptions need to be changed. I mean, if you look
Yeah.
at the perceptions of transgender people throughout modern times and modern history, the way that we've been portrayed in film and um, um, even early on, 30s, 40s, 50s is always like buffoonery, or, like drag or something
Yeah,
like,
well, I was going to say cross dressers,
yeah,
exactly.
cross dressers, which, people also equate like drag queens with transgender
Yeah.
people, and that's not true either. Like most transgender people are not gay men, and
Yeah.
most drag queens are gay men, and they're not
See, that's
trans.
the thing that what you're doing here, Pam, is, in my opinion, just for me personally, is so important because I hate to say it, but cross dressers, trans, one and the same, but that's not true. You just said it right there. You know what I'm saying? And having this discussion with you, I said, wait, Pam isn't that, David Bowie or what, those guys from the 70s do. That's not what you are doing. And I'm not slighting David Bowie. Because you're a musician and stuff, but there's other people that would cross dress and stuff too back in the old days, and I guess they still do, but I don't
Well,
know.
I think cross dressers can be transgender. I think many transgender people cross dress, or dress in their gender identity to try to present themselves the way they see themselves inside. Try to present themselves on the outside as the way they see themselves on the
Good,
inside before they transition. Some never do transition.
good
But
point.
my only point, yeah. So I think many cross dressers are actually transgender, but my only point is that a lot of people think of like the gay people
That's
or
that's what I meant exactly.
drag queens or
Yes.
that art of drag as more of a transgender type of person, and they're not. Most of those people are just gay men
That's what I was kind of the
performing this
sexual
art.
preference. I was going with that sexual preference where I'm going to be sexually stimulated by being a cross dresser, essentially. And
Oh,
what
the
you're
fetish, fetishism.
exactly, that's what I was going. But what you're saying is that's not has nothing to do with being a gender identification. That's sexual preference, fetish.
That's right.
Yeah, see, that's so. Look at that, Pam. You've already educated me, man. Oh, how dare I? But you already educated me. Look at that. So you've
That's
already
cool.
educated me, huh?
So that's great.
So,
I'm
so,
happy.
so that says right there, hey, just because some guy has a sexual preference and he's getting cross-dressed or something like that, that doesn't say. I don't know. I find that very interesting. I never thought about that until we had this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, some cross-dressers have sexual fetishes, but at the same time, I
Yeah.
guess that's the point I wanted to bring home, is that you know, gender fluidity, like you were saying, David Bowie. I think he was bisexual. I mean, that's kind of like gender nonconforming, if you will. The gender fluid people, the non-binary people. They're another group that are difficult for people to understand. And to be quite honest with you, I'm a binary person, right? I'm female and I identify as a female, and I have a female mind, thoughts, and body now. So that's who I identify with. It's very binary. But non-binary people, that's very difficult to understand. But
Yeah.
maybe, like, how can you feel both at the same time? And sometimes it kind of bothers me that people don't understand that non-binary people exist in nature. Um, Many people will say, when they want to argue that transgender people are that men and women are binary, and that you only have men and women in life, and that is patently not true. There are men and women, and there are also what they used to in the old days called hermaphrodites, who are now called intersex people. And these are people who are actually chromosomally
Yeah,
male
no, that's
and
absolutely.
female, and also have the characteristics of both male and female. So non-binary exists, but many times I will see the argument being made there are only men and women, and that is not true. It's just not
Yeah,
true.
but I think the argument against that though is that the chrome whatever they're called
Chromosomes,
intersect, is that what we
chromosomes.
say,
Yeah,
intersect,
intersex.
um,
Yeah,
that population size is so small, you know what I'm saying? And now it
it
just
is
seems,
small.
I mean, tiny. And whereas it's just exploding on that, you're almost wondering, is it a political observation as opposed to actually what people are going through? Almost like
Yeah.
and I don't want to get too political here, but it's like,
Yes.
hey, I'm part of I'm so out, I'm in, if that makes sense. And I don't know how to, I
Well, I
frankly,
think I think the list of gender types it's unwieldy.
right,
So many of us,
right,
it becomes unwieldy. But I would just say that there's I think there are studies now. There has been a few studies that kind of show a correlation of gender identity in the brain and the correlation between trans women and their biological counterparts. In other words, trans women kind of their brains are sort of like on the level of
good,
their biological natal female counterparts. So I think that gender identity, there's a part of your brain that has identity and
yeah.
sense of self. And I think that's why another reason why we are transgender and have all and will always be. Um, some people actually, some people will say, well, a lot of people are detransitioning too, which is another issue. But I know a lot of trans people, and there's only one person that I know that has detransitioned. And this is a person who was a very conservative, religious right person to begin with. And I think she had some kind of spiritual epiphany, or that she decided that this is not for her, and that she was confused in her gender and decided to detransition. That's the that's the only person out of the many, many, many transgender people I knew who have done
Yeah,
that.
but that's going to get the headlines. I mean, it's just, it's a
Yes.
man bites dog thing at this stage, Pam. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the way it is. I mean, they're always going to, whenever,
Sensational, yeah.
absolutely, whenever we make a political thing, it's like, oh, look at all these trans. Now we got our instance of people are detransitioning. Oh my, that's why I hate the politics of it all. And look, I'm as guilty as anyone else making it political, and I should not be. That's why I'm having this
I never
conversation.
noticed.
Oh, yeah, I can be an asshole. This stuff, you know what I'm saying? I mean, my
I never
goodness, like,
noticed.
I mean, that's the thing about ignorance. Ignorance is never a good thing. I mean, so that doesn't mean you have to be like, oh, you have to be like all trans people are so great and all non-trans people are so bad. It's not, it's so freaking stupid. I hate when we put everybody in one category, you over there and you over there, because like there's fluid for everything, man. I mean, my goodness. I'm a right wing conservative who wants a damn wealth tax. You know what I'm saying? People are like, oh, you're a commie. I'm like, I'm far from a commie. I'm freaking right wing as far as they can be. But I think we need to tax these rich people a little bit more. And people are like, oh, what does that make me, a left wing now? It's crazy. Anyway, all
Well, it
right,
leaves me out.
what's that?
Leaves me out.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I just posted a chart on something. I think you might have seen it on Facebook, or maybe I can't remember. It said, the top 0.01% own more by far than the bottom 50% of
I
the
saw
United
that.
States.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this. How do people not see this is bad, man? You have the concentration of wealth up here, and these people have the money to buy everything, including politicians. I don't understand how people say I have one guy who's a great guy, my man Tom. He's like, there's what's like you're saying, it's not moral to tax people or something like that. I said, well, we're taxing people now. So what's the morality behind anything? Anyways, it's an interesting dialogue, but I don't get it. I'm like, don't you see these people got so much and they can buy anything they want, and just recognize that doesn't make you a commie, but beat us. I mean, you're in Massachusetts, so you're that's well, hell, you got to worry about an estate tax, Pam. Just FYI, in Massachusetts, you got $2 million to your name. They're going to tax your estate. Just FYI. So they
Yeah.
don't they don't play in Massachusetts when it comes to wealth. That's for
It's
sure.
Massachusetts all over again.
Well, it's been great, Pam. I know you and I have been talking for a while here, so I'm gonna let you. I'm getting hitting the. I wake up at 5, and I'm hitting the wall now, so I'm gonna let you go.
All
So I'm
right.
going to give you a couple. Anything you want to tell, whoever watches this, and take a couple minutes and just say whatever's on your mind, Pam, because this has
Okay.
been beneficial
Just
for
to
me. Sure.
Okay, just to wrap it up, I would
Yeah.
just, I want to thank you for having me on. I want to thank you for inviting me. And it was really great to get to know you a little bit beforehand, or I'm sure it was great to get to know me. Hopefully I get to know you a little bit more too later on, because I know you have a story too that I would like to hear. But I hope that if anybody is listening or watching this video, I would hope that no matter how you feel, I would hope that you would take into consideration that transgender people are just people. We're just people who just happen to have this gender identity. And it's not a sexual preference, it's a gender identity. And to please open your mind and your heart and try to understand that all we want is to be loved and accepted like anybody else.
That's fantastic.
Okay.
Hey, hang tight. I'm going to stop the recording right quick. Hang tight. Don't hang up yet, Pam. All right. All right, there we go. All right, so just real quick, we're still recording real quick. So thanks for being here, folks. Yeah, comments are welcome down below. Don't flame people, man. Just if you got good comments to say, or even questioning comments, maybe Pam will look and answer some questions or something like that. But just don't be an ass. But if you got comments, put them down below, because we're learning. It's always a learning experience, and it's a great experiment of ours. So thanks for being here. God bless. Hang tight, Pam.
Thank you.
Stop recording.